A very, very warm welcome to yet another Kumekucha video. Information and analysis that is very difficult to find anywhere else. I recommend that you subscribe and you hit the bell button so that you receive notifications every time I have a new video. Karibu sana and enjoy. In recent days, there's something which has become extremely clear concerning the nation of Tanzania, and that is Tundu Lissu is going for nothing less than the presidency of the Republic of Tanzania. We're all aware of the fact that Bwana Lissu has been going all over the place on talk shows, etc., awakening the world as to what is happening in Tanzania. And just yesterday, this culminated with Tundu Lissu meeting Tanzanians in the diaspora, Tanzanians living in the United States. And this meeting was held in Washington. And if you don't believe what I'm telling you, then just one statement that Tundu Lissu made during this meeting should prove it. Tundu Lissu said he's really looking forward to next year. Now, in case you don't know, or in case you forgot, next year, 2020, is an election year in Tanzania. Now, if you understand the old Tanzania, if you've known Tanzania all these years, you will be telling me now, Chris, what do you mean there's an election next year? Is CCM still in Tanzania? Then you can be sure CCM will win those elections. They will rig those elections and win, like they have always done. So this thing about Tundu Lissu and elections next year means nothing. Oh, you're out of date. If this is truly your view, let me bring you up to speed. Now, it is true that Parliament is controlled by CCM. It is also true that quite a number of opposition legislators have crossed the floor to CCM. All that is true. It is also true that never has the opposition in Tanzania been so weak as it is now. Indeed, Tundu Lissu himself says the mission of President Magufuli from when he took power was to completely destroy the opposition so that there'd be no opposition in Tanzania. All that is very true. However, there are some new developments you need to be aware of. And these developments have completely changed the political landscape in Tanzania. Now, before I tell you what these developments are, let me tell you a little about myself, because you might be sitting there taking in this video and saying to yourself, what does this Kenyan know? What is this Kenyan speaking from Nairobi, Kenya? What does he know about Tanzania and what is going on in Tanzania? Anajua nini kuhusu hali halisi hapa Tanzania? Well, let me answer you. Number one, I am not based in Nairobi, Kenya. No way. Indeed, if you had the opportunity to ask those who are close to me, they will tell you my base is Tanzania. The truth is, I've been spending most of my time within Tanzania. And they will also tell you I did not start living in Tanzania yesterday. I was in Tanzania during the days of Ali Hassan Mwinyi. I was in Tanzania during the days of Benjamin Mkapa, president, and Jakaya Kikwete, and now John Pombe Magufuli. I don't know everything, but there are very few things I don't know about Tanzania. Indeed, my travels within Tanzania can rival the travels within Tanzania of very many Tanzanians, the vast majority of Tanzanians. I have been to Morogoro, I have been to Dodoma, I have been to Shinyanga, Kahama, you name it, very many remote areas of Tanzania. I have even seen the house John Pombe Magufuli built before he was president, a very humble house in Mwanza. Let me not bore you with geography lessons on Tanzania, but this one I must say, Kenya is a very beautiful country. However, Tanzania is the most beautiful country in the world, in my view. If you want the experience of a lifetime, don't visit Europe, don't even visit the United States. If you want the experience that you'll take with you to your grave, visiting a place, visit Tanzania. And don't visit Dar es Salaam. Travel across the country by road. But be very careful to have your visas in order. Yeah, even if you live in Europe, even if you're an American of Nigerian origin, be extremely careful. You could be deported on landing in Dar es Salaam. That's the truth. Courtesy of draconian dictator John Pombe Magufuli in power in Tanzania. Fortunately, Tanzania is not Magufuli's personal property. Tanzania belongs to God Almighty. And the people God Almighty has appointed to take care of this beautiful nation are Tanzanian nationals. Being on the ground, and very recently too, I can tell you one thing for sure. In the 2020 general elections in Tanzania, CCM, with all its power and its influence and with all its draconian ways, is going to have a very serious problem. And I'm not saying that from surveys I've seen. I'm not saying that from things I've read. I'm saying that from speaking to people on the ground right across Tanzania. Now, the impressions I got is that a lot of Tanzanians are very scared of the government. Traditionally, they've been very terrified of the government and of CCM. That is how it has always been. But I was very shocked recently, deep in the rural Tanzania, to listen to conversations that were very sympathetic towards the opposition, very sympathetic towards Tundu Lissu. The long and short of what I'm trying to say is that the biggest blunder the CCM government has made, by far the biggest blunder they've made, was when they tried to assassinate Tundu Lissu. They failed. That was the biggest blunder. And it'll come back to haunt them in a very serious way. And maybe, just maybe, this was God's way of dealing with the evil going on inside Tanzania. Because although many people take this lightly, personally, and I need to be corrected, personally, I don't know of anybody else in the world that has had 16 bullets pumped into them from an automatic weapon and they have survived. I don't know. Educate me. And because Tundu Lissu survived, he has got something which is very powerful in politics. It is called sympathy votes. Now in politics, sympathy support is devastating to any opposition, to anybody trying to oppose that candidate. Why? Because it becomes almost impossible, virtually impossible, to attack that candidate, that political candidate, who has got sympathy on his side. How do you attack them? But even before we go back to Tundu Lissu and his bid for the presidency, let me highlight a few key things that have happened in Tanzania in recent times that have revolutionized the political landscape. For the first time in the long, peaceful history of Tanzania, over 400 people, have either ended up dead or have vanished into thin air. Some bodies have been fished out of rivers, fished out of the Indian Ocean, and to date, the government has not explained. Now, all these people have relatives, they have friends, they have people who are close to them, they have extended relatives. And you can be sure that even if you sing the praises of John Pombe Magufuli from morning till evening for 20 days or more, you will never convince these people to side with you or to side with the government. The other thing that has happened is that there has been a purge against religious people, various religions. Visiting evangelists have been arrested and held. Some of them have even been jailed for extended periods of time. Muslim Kshs and leaders have been incarcerated. Yeah, many of them are still behind bars. Many of them accused of terrorism. Evidence has not been produced, but investigations are ongoing, and they don't look like they will end anytime soon, at least not before 50 years are over. Recently, the Catholic Church in Tanzania issued a pastoral letter, condemning the government and complaining to the government about human rights abuses and the way the country was being led by the government of John Pombe Magufuli. The Lutheran Church did the same, and both of them received the same response. A threatening letter from the government. And some of the leaders even had their passports taken away and their nationalities questioned. Now, in case you're not aware, the Muslims, the Catholic Church and the Lutheran Church are very dominant and very powerful in the country called Tanzania. They have millions of followers. And I'm sure many of those followers have voting cards. Now, let's bring things into perspective, okay? So that we understand fully what I'm trying to say. In the last presidential elections that got John Pombe Magufuli into power, he won by 8.8 million votes, as opposed to Edward Lowassa's 6 million votes, roughly. A difference of 2.8 million votes. However, there was evidence and widespread claims of rigging, that actually the CCM people had fiddled with the elections. Indeed, one poll, done by a pollster known as TADIP, T-A-D-I-P, put Lowassa ahead at 54.5% of the votes, and Magufuli way behind at 40.0% of the vote. That was a poll done after the nominations and shortly before the election proper. Now, if we're to be honest, the truth is, immediately Magufuli took over, his policies helped him gather a lot of support countrywide. However, a poll carried out by a Tanzanian pollster, an NGO called Twaweza, found that Magufuli's popularity had sunk by 41% at the end of the first 2 years of being in power. Now, 41% is huge. That is almost half your popularity. Poof, gone. Now, that poll happened in 2018, last year. A lot has happened between last year and today, in February 2019, that must have taken Magufuli's popularity even lower. Like the attack against religious people that I've just mentioned. And then there's the economy. There's nothing that touches voters more than the economy. And then when all this is going on, put Tundu Lissu into the mix and you'll realize CCM, kwaheri. Tundu Lissu is a living example of the draconian, murderous ways of John Pombe Magufuli, because he survived and he has the injuries to prove. This is not a rumor. This is not something being reported by the BBC or CNN, or somebody who can be able to cook and exaggerate the story. Tundu Lissu is there to be seen. The evidence is there from his doctors. And everybody can clearly see that Tundu Lissu can hardly walk. One of his legs was almost completely destroyed. Now, let's look at this thing politically. This could not have come at a worse time for CCM, because John Pombe Magufuli has never made a single foreign trip. The world has not seen him. He has not addressed the world to tell his side of the story. If this was Jakaya Kikwete, the former president, things would have been very different. But it has been said that John Pombe Magufuli cannot construct a single correct sentence in the English language. Although he's called doctor, he has a PhD in chemistry. Now, not knowing English is not a big deal. You can get a translator and speak in the language you're confident with and get a translation and address the world and tell them what is going on in Tanzania, your side of the story. But it seems the president has an inferiority complex. And this has been proved very many times by many curious incidences. For instance, people who have tried to question his educational background have ended up in serious trouble. Now, it is interesting that the educational qualifications of President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya have been questioned in the past. Most notably, his university degree. However, the president did not take it so seriously. Nobody got killed. Nobody was threatened. But in Tanzania, even today, try and challenge the president's educational background. Utajua ujui. So the question we must ask, why should somebody be so sensitive over something like the educational background? Why should they be so touched, so sensitive over it, if those who are accusing him do not have some truth in what they're saying? But even apart from that, there's a lot about the president of Tanzania that puts a huge question mark about his educational background, not only his educational background, but his understanding of many key crucial issues that are extremely important for somebody holding the office of a president to understand. And this has come out very clearly in his policies. You have a country where almost 60% of your budget is financed by donors. And what do? You start harassing donors. You have a problem with the European Union permanent representative in Dar es Salaam, so much so that you deport them. Number two, you don't seem to have any idea of how to use your foreign affairs people to create the right image for your country. And this Tundu Lissu issue coming along is an acid test. Because Tundu Lissu is out there addressing the world, addressing the international community about the problems in Tanzania. And there's no response from the Tanzanian government. In one talk show where the Tanzanian ambassador to the United States appeared, the man lost his temper. The man reduced a very important discussion about Tanzanian foreign policy into a personal issue between himself and Tundu Lissu. What do you expect the world to think? Now, the reality of politics, no matter what you think, and we've had this problem even in Kenya, the reality of politics is that no country is an island, okay? And whatever political contest will take place in any country will have foreign interests, whether you like it or not. Mpende mspende. And it is extremely dangerous for you if those foreign interests are siding with the opponent in any election. And this is the huge danger CCM finds itself in. And that is why Tundu Lissu is the worst nightmare of CCM. Now, you need to know that CCM is a very crafty political party, extremely crafty. They have a history of surviving by being extremely crafty. Now, the latest crafty techniques they're using is to put pressure on Tundu Lissu to return home to Tanzania, to stop embarrassing the country out there in the international community. Now, this is crafty because CCM are well aware of the damage that Tundu Lissu is doing to the CCM government by revealing to the world the truth, the true situation in the country called Tanzania. The damage is doing by drawing attention to the killings and attempted killings in Tanzania by the draconian dictatorial John Pombe Magufuli. Because the truth is, if John Pombe Magufuli is a very good president, he fights corruption, etc., etc., why does he need to kill his opponents? Why do we need so many killings and bloodletting in Tanzania? So, now that we have been able to establish the true position of an election in Tanzania, presidential election, if it were held today, let us address another very key issue in presidential elections in Africa, something called state machinery. CCM, the ruling party, can very easily fiddle with elections because they control state machinery, they're in power. And we have seen this happening very many times all over Africa, even in Kenya, most recently the 2017 presidential elections. Tundu Lissu has something very interesting to say about this. He says there's no way the electoral body in Tanzania can be reformed. Those reforms cannot take place when a CCM government is in power. Indeed, it is the only thing CCM have, because they're no longer popular. So the only thing they have is state machinery to manipulate the votes and make sure they stay in power. So how do you expect them to get rid of it? How do you expect them to nullify the only weapon they have of staying in power? Impossible. And so what Tundu Lissu says is that the opposition should go ahead with the elections and win those elections by ensuring they have a landslide. They'll not be able to win that election by having a significant margin. No way. Because even if you have a significant margin, you can still be rigged out. Votes can still be fiddled with. However, it's virtually impossible to fiddle with an election that has a landslide victory for one of the candidates. And I have to agree with him, because based on what I've told you in this video, a landslide victory for candidate Tundu Lissu in the 2020 presidential elections is very believable. One word I've heard a lot, talking to Tanzanians on the ground, those who are able to talk without fear, is the word tumechoka. That means we are tired. Who are they tired of? They are tired of John Pombe Magufuli. They are tired of the strange new Tanzania that has emerged under Magufuli. They don't like it. No money. The economy is in trouble. And most of all, everybody lives in fear. Tanzanians are not used to living in fear. It is very clear to me, and indeed it should be clear to any keen political observer in Tanzania, that these factors are enough to give Tundu Lissu a landslide victory in any presidential contest against John Pombe Magufuli. And don't be fooled by the rhetoric coming out of Tanzania, because it is normal in any dictatorship to hear people singing praises of the dictator. But as soon as people smell blood, what I mean is that they smell chances that can be defeated, you'll be shocked. Now, Tundu Lissu cannot do it alone. He needs the support of Tanzanians all over the world, especially those in the diaspora, because the ones back home cannot talk. Wamekabwa, they've been neutralized. Nobody wants that their body will be the next one to be fished out of the Indian Ocean. So they have to keep quiet. The only people talking very loudly now in Tanzania are the people making money from that talking. And that's the truth. And this has happened before, historically, in many dictatorships. If you want to make money, if you want your business to go ahead, come out and strongly support the strong man. You will not only benefit, you can get away with anything. Because all you need to do is to prove to the government that your opponent or your business rival is against the government. That's it. Your opponent is finished. Your business rival is finished. And you can do virtually anything as long as the government is sure that what you're doing is in support of their regime. And so the people you hear talking very loudly, it is for personal and financial gain. The truth of the situation lies with the voter on the ground. And as I've just displayed to you, I've talked to a lot of those voters on the ground, across sections right across the country, even in places that were previously CCM strongholds. And indeed, those who know Tanzania will know that you cannot attack religious leaders in Tanzania as a government and get away with it. It's impossible. So Tanzanians in the diaspora are very important going forward. Now, unfortunately, many of them, even in the foreign countries where they're living, are scared. They do not have the courage to come out and stand for their home country. Well, history has proved when you keep quiet, when you don't want to get involved, because of your own selfish personal interests, you want to be safe, chances are that you'll end up suffering. those draconian dictatorial ways going on in Tanzania will end up catching up with you, or your loved ones, or those who are very close to you. Is it a good idea to wait for your relatives and your loved ones who are still in Tanzania to be arrested, or God forbid, to be killed, for you to stand up and start talking? If you really love your country, and Tanzania doesn't belong to John Pombe Magufuli, it doesn't belong to Tundu Lissu, it belongs to all Tanzanians. And at the moment, there's a crisis in the country, a very serious crisis. People are living in fear. So if you choose to be silent, yani unyamazie tu hiyo maneno, uendelee na shughuli yako, haikuhusu. Siku moja hivi karibuni itakushika, na itakushika vibaya. One of these days it will affect you, and it will affect you in a very major way. The time has come, for all Tanzanians and all friends of Tanzania to hold John Pombe Magufuli to account. You may be living a very comfortable life right now, while the vast majority of Tanzanians are suffering very seriously. However, remember and try to imagine what kind of future Tanzania you are allowing to happen, which will seriously affect your children and your children's children. So you must act now. You must support change in Tanzania now. Until next time, this is Kshs, Kumekucha.